G'day guys, it's Gaz and Ollie here. Now as the weather gets colder, you may have noticed that you have an increase in your joint pain, particularly if you have a joint with osteoarthritis. Now if this is the case, you're not alone. Several studies have identified a link between cold weather and an increase in joint pain. One big European study in particular found that over 67% of participants noticed a correlation between the weather and an increase in their joint pain. Interestingly, the weather conditions which were most associated with joint pain were not only cold weather, but wet weather.
So in this video, we're going to discuss several of the possible explanations around this correlation between the cold weather and an increase in your joint symptoms. And we'll give you some tips to help you overcome that so you can keep exercising and doing the things you love.
Now the first theory is concerned with barometric pressure, particularly as the pressure changes from high to low, as it commonly does as the weather becomes wet and cold. Now this change in pressure can cause the tissues in your joints to expand, which can cause them to feel pain in an already sensitive area.
That's right. Now, unfortunately, we can't do much about the barometric pressure changes, Garrick. But it is important to remind yourself that even though the pressure changes might be the explanation for why your joints are feeling a little bit more sore than they normally would, it's good to remind yourself that that doesn't mean that your joint is worsening or becoming more damaged in any way. And it certainly doesn't mean that you're going to put yourself at risk of injury when you exercise.
The second theory is in regard to blood flow. As you get colder, your body will redirect its blood flow from its extremities into its organs. To do this, it must constrict the blood vessels in your extremities. Unfortunately, this can cause your extremities and your joints to become colder and stiffer and potentially more susceptible to pain.
This change in blood flow is linked to point number 3, changes in activity levels. I know for sure, Garrick, when it starts to get cold, particularly in the morning, it makes it much harder to get up and go for a bike ride. And I know for you, getting up and going for a surf. So we know that whenever you reduce your activity levels, that can have a big impact on the pain you experience from conditions like osteoarthritis.
There are 3 possible explanations for why you might experience more joint pain with the weather. And here are 3 tips to help you to overcome those. The first tip is to start with a warm-up. Get moving, do some gentle exercise, and you might feel that your joints loosen up, become less painful, and you can perhaps do some more exercise.
Tip number 2, pretty self-explanatory, exercise in a warmer environment. So that might mean turning the heater on for your workout, or going for a walk around a shopping centre instead of going for a walk outside. Or you might even just change your exercise time from earlier in the morning when it's cool to later in the day when the sun's out and it's a little bit warmer and a bit easier to get moving.
The third tip is to wear warm clothing. Layer up. Wear your tracky dacks. You might find even that if you wear a compression garment, you get a bit more relief from the symptoms.
Now, one final explanation as to why changes in the weather or when it gets colder increase our joint pain symptoms is that of our mental health in what's sometimes known as the winter blues. When the weather gets cold and wet, people are more likely to experience symptoms of depression, irritability, and anxiety. And we know that those sorts of symptoms can actually increase the amount of pain we experience. Now, there's a lot of factors at play when it comes to how you feel, but here are some good tips to help you manage your mood and how you feel.
The first is to get adequate sleep, 7 to 9 hours a night if you can. The second, try to stay sociable. Try to keep engaging in enjoyable activities. And the third, our favourite, try exercising. Exercise has a really positive effect on our emotional state.
So there you have it, some possible explanations for your weather-related joint pain. We hope you enjoyed the video and have some things to think about the next time your joints start to feel more sore when the weather gets cold and wet. We'll see you in the next video.